Yes, so my name is Audrey. I am a breakup and divorce coach. I am based in London, so I'm French. My qualifications are certified by the International Coaching Federation, and I also hold a CPD in positive psychology, and I'm training in NLP as well at the moment. So this is me in a nutshell. And yes, I'm helping all through stages of divorce, before, during, and after. I'm helping couples, individuals, of course, and also hold group coaching as well. But today, yes, we're going to talk about co-parenting and how we can help you today in this difficult topic when you divorce.
Thank you, Audrey. So I'm Sarah Jane. I'm a French lawyer. I practice in Hong Kong and in the UK in areas of family law, international law mainly. I'm also French and British. So I usually assist people in family matters, a lot of international divorce where there is a French element. So the reason why we're doing this webinar today on co-parenting in the divorce process is because it's something that I have to deal on a day-to-day basis in my practice. And I've started to work with Audrey to try and resolve those issues in order for people to be able to deal with the divorce process more easily, if that can be possible. So in order to introduce the subject, we need to bear in mind that the most important is that you have to accept in the divorce process that co-parenting is something that is inevitable. You have to go through co-parenting, even though you don't get along with your ex anymore. Your marriage is over, but you are still parents. That's what you have to bear in mind. And how, even though you're not a couple anymore, you have to remain parents for your children. The parental couple still exists, and you have to move forward and try and find a way to work together. Your children, there will be so much changes in their life that they need to be a constant, which is their parents. They need to feel safe. They need to feel that their parents will still continue to look after them, to protect them. And this is what co-parenting is all about. You have to be able to set aside your differences and be able to deal with your children, present a united front. And this is what I feel is one of the most difficult parts in the divorce process. And I often seek Audrey's help when my clients are in denial. This is the first reason why I would seek Audrey's help in those co-parenting issues and to help us, because the client is in denial, either that the divorce is actually taking place, or that there's a hope that they will get back together. And as a result, the reaction may not always be the ones that we are looking for. So we are going to talk about different aspects leading to the co-parenting issue as such. The first one being, how do you tell your children that you're going to separate or get a divorce? How often, how do you tell your spouse that you want to divorce? And as always in those areas of relationship issues, the most important, I think, and that we'll talk about all along today, is communication and respect. So Audrey, here's to you. When do we start talking about it?
Thank you, Sarah Jane. Thank you for the great introduction to the topic today. Yes, so first of all, yes, how do you tell your children? I mean, as you mentioned first, it's basic, but tell your spouse first. I mean, the person who's receiving the news, needs time to catch up, emotionally, and sometimes it comes as a big shock. The person who decides to divorce is ahead psychologically. She's probably, or he's probably made up the decision way before, and it comes as a shock for the other person. So first, put yourself in the shoes of the other parent and communicate clearly. And then when, the news is a bit digested, and you can communicate on how and when to tell the children, you do it then ideally together. Ideally together. That's really important. I know there will be resentment, anger, fear, all sorts of emotions you will both feel at that time. If you can take a deep breath, put them aside and say, okay, now it's just about the kids. I know, whatever emotions you have, and to tell them. So tell them together, keep it short. I always say, keep it short and simple. You don't have to go into all the details with your children. And don't put the blame on the other parent during that conversation. Remember, as you said, Sarah Jane, you are still a family. You are still parents, even if you're not a family as such. So keep it short, keep it simple, avoid giving too much details, and avoid blaming each other. Children don't need to know the ins and outs and everything about your divorce and your relationship. So that would be the first key points, I'd say. Then, yeah.
Just to reassure everybody, what happens, if your spouse, out of spite, tells your children before? We can get over that. It's not, what can you tell about that?
As I often say, you can only control, what you can control. So it happened. How can you now react to this? You choose how to react. You don't have to react with your emotion and anger. I know it's difficult. I know you're going to feel angry. You're going to feel hurt or betrayed. Especially you will worry for your children. But how can you fix that situation? What can you do for your children? So maybe sit down with them again and say, yes, what mom or dad told you is true. That's what's happening. And reassure them that you are both loving them, that it's not their fault, that they have nothing to blame themselves for. That is so important. And because at any age, the child, even teens, will blame them for the separation, will blame themselves. So it's important to remind them, yes, that it's not their fault. And sit down again, be calm, don't start screaming and shouting and say, look what your dad or mom just said. And take a deep breath, take a step back and say, okay, how can I react to this in front of my children, for their best interest?
Thank you for that. That's it's very important to keep in mind. The other thing that's very important in co-parenting is dealing with your emotions. How do you deal with, you've touched upon it already, but in the long run, how do you deal with your emotion with regards to your ex and with regards to the children with this issue of co-parenting?
Yes, well, first, it depends of the age of the children. Yes, with the children. So when they're little is different from when they're older. The way you communicate with them and reassure them. So first, I think it's important to think if they're very young, they need structure and reassurance. Okay, they don't need to see you sad, or you can share with them that mom and dad have difficulties, because they will feel it. They will know that something is not right. So don't hide it from your children, and reassure them. So that's when they're younger. Keep it simple and short, and keep their routine until it changes. Keep the same routine until the routine is going to change. Maybe mom or dad is going to move out, or they're going to change, house. So this can be said later. And for the older children, they're going to have lots of emotions, especially teens. So it's about telling them way before, that a younger child. Tell them a bit before, so they have time to digest the news, understand the feeling and emotions behind it and the consequences. So they feel part of the family, and they feel that they have a say, you know, in the organization, or that at least they can share their feelings. So it's always important to take a step back, you know, with your emotions, and you know, think of a positive souvenir that you have, something you like, you know, a photo, anything that calms you or grounds you before reacting when talking to your ex in front of your children. Just take a deep breath, just a 10 seconds, think of something soothing, something you know, a nice souvenir, or you know, anything in your mind that could just calm you and stop you from overreacting, and think again, and think also, what is it going to bring to the conversation? Is it going to make it worse, or is it going to help, you know, the conversation? Is it going to help move forward, you know? So
that the real issue with those, dealing with those emotions, I think, is when people are at war during the divorce process. And it's really, really important to be able to deal with those emotions before, to be able to go forward in the divorce, all the legal aspects. If you don't deal with those emotions, it will have an adverse consequence on your children, but also on the way you deal with the divorce process, because you'll be, you know, holding back on a lot of things because you're angry or you're annoyed, or so dealing with the emotion the way you've just, you know, presented it is really, really a key tip in dealing with the divorce and the co-parenting. What's important is, I feel, and we've discussed it many times, can you give us some examples of how to interact with your children in this divorce process, which is new for them, to be able to maintain the relationship you had before. It's going to be a new relationship, but make sure that it continues on the same basis you had before, without the other parent.
Yes, so yeah, the relationship will change once, you know, one of the parents have moved out, or once, you know, so before that stage, if you can give time to the child to adjust and digest the news before any big changes are made, it's important just to have that little gap for them to adjust. And then for the little ones, maybe share, you know, the positive of, you know, having two beds, or, you know, more toys, or 2 Christmases, or whatever is positive with that change, because children thrive on stability and routine. So ask yourself, and please don't blame yourself. You know, I know it's hard enough for the parents, so don't put more pressure on yourself than you have already. But as much as possible, keep the same routine. You know, especially in younger children. So whatever possible, keep it the same. And what you have to change, well, do it slowly, gradually, so that it's not a shock for the child. Sometimes I find that communicating with them is going to be in a new way, as you said, Sarah Jane. It's going to be new. You're going to have rebuild a relationship. What can you do that's different? You know, it won't be the same way to speak with them, be with them. So think of things they like doing. Maybe install you know, Wednesday night game or something, movie night or pizza night. Or I know you may be doing that already, but you know, do something special when you have the children with you. I find that works really well. Or what works also is going to their bedroom. You know, when you are in their own environment, they really feel more maybe inclined to share their feelings. And so it's always important to check on them, how they feel. You know, are they more withdrawn than usual? How, you know, how they're coping. So always try to, you know, be there for them, and also don't multitask when you do that. You know, I know it's so easy to be on the phone and cook dinner and do all these things, but try to just be there for them, even if it's 15 minutes, you know, and really have a chat with them, you know.
So going back to co-parenting, from the lawyer's point of view, now that we've talked about the emotions, which are usually what really is the important thing to really control to begin with. Co-parenting from the lawyer's point of view involves making decisions with regards to the children, day-to-day decision, but also decision for the future, schools, extracurricular activities, religion, things like that. And I feel it is very difficult when parents are at war and are not able to discuss, to be able to make decisions in common. So what I always tell my client, and it's something that's common to all jurisdiction, whatever country you're living in, is to think about your children first. What is their best interest? So how can we make sure to communicate the best way with the other to be able to get a decision with regards to those important and less important, like extracurricular activities? How can we get the other one to agree, or at least not to argue about, oh, I want her to do some dance, and no, I don't, my son wants to do some dance lessons and my husband doesn't. How, do you have any idea of how we can get around those things?
Yes, well, it's not easy. So as I said again, be kind to yourself and to each other if possible. It's not easy as a parent. You need to raise children and deal with all of that. So when you're co-parenting, it's even harder. So think about your organization before the separation. What was the organization in place before, and what can you keep the same, for the child? So that's the first thing. Maybe one parent to care most of the parenting before the separation. Would it be possible to keep it the same way? I know many moms and dads wants the 50-50, and I totally understand, but what is the best interest of the child? Maybe he's very young and he used to one adult, only the mom or the dad looking after him or her during the day. So if there is a big change, it could be a bit disturbing, to suddenly go from one house to the other. So it's not about just having the 50-50, because I know you both want to see your children. It's about how can you help your child, even if you're not seeing him as much as your ex-spouse. How can you support your child in the best way possible, be there for him or her, even if you're not co-sharing 50-50 the parenting. So that's the first thing, not to go to war just to have the 50% share. I think, it's really important to bear this in mind, whatever was in place before the separation should be kept if possible. And I'm not here to give advice, what is best for your children more than anyone else, a lawyer, a coach, no one can tell you. So think about it and try to, with that in mind, make the decision of maybe giving up some time with your children, yes, for the best.
I think what's important is really to bear in mind, for instance, I often have to advise, I can't really advise them, but the question that's often raised, like you say, is the shared custody. And it's very difficult because I often try, even though we're always saying the best interest of the children, it's never the same. The families live differently, the children have different personalities. So what can apply to one child, a young child, may not be applicable to another. So what I try to tell my clients is also that they have to make sure that the reason why they're it's often they're refusing something, is really because they honestly believe that it's not in the interest of the child, rather than because they want to annoy the other. And I think that's something very important and very difficult also to achieve, to be able to take a step back. And that's where you can help, Audrey, because the lawyer can't help. And I'm the one left with the decision of drafting the agreement about, is it Saturday or Monday that the child is going to go to the other parent. And it's very difficult for me to, because like you, I cannot advise on those things. I can only say what seems equitable. But like you say, you really have, even if you can't talk like you would like to with the other parent, you need to, sometimes you need to do double the work in order to get a solution that is really in the interest of the child. And that's very important, very difficult to achieve. I think, especially when children are young, because when they're older, they can express themselves better. When they're young, I feel that sometimes you have to try things also to see if it's worked, but not try for 1 week and say, oh no, it's not working. You really have to make the effort to try for a longer period of time and to see whether it's really working or not. You have to be true to yourself, but also to your child. That's what do you think, Audrey?
Yes, definitely. I mean, you may think it's better for your child, but maybe it's not. So yes, in my role, I assess that with the client. I ask questions, what would it look like in a month, in 6 months, in 2 years, and often we talk about a parenting plan. I think I mentioned this with you before, and I think it's a good idea to establish a co-parenting plan. I know you do that in your practice, but maybe with the person, I try to establish what it's important for her or what she can let go of, because that's also important, to be able to let go of control. You're not going to control all your child's life anymore. You're not going to be there all the time. And it's so hard, as a divorced mom, I know that it's very hard to let go of this, of not seeing your children when they're young. I mean, so knowing about childcare, how do you want childcare to look like when you are both not able to look after the children, the babysitter, or what time do you have for your children? Maybe you work a lot, maybe your partner works a lot. So how can, you work out a plan so that you can both have your fulfilled work life and see your children? The holidays, how to divide them and see what's important to you. I have the example of a mom. She had to move out of the country for work, and she couldn't look after the children. So she couldn't be on 50-50, but all through summer, she had the children for maybe, 6 weeks at a time or longer. And that's how she made up for the time lost. I know it's not the same, but she had them for a longer period of time instead of every weekend or half the week. So think of what works for you long term, how your life would look like, when you have this co-parenting plan in place. And, you can review it. I know it could be difficult if you don't get on with your ex. So think about now, how would it look like in a year or 2 years' time? Would it fit in my life, in my new life? I may not know what it looked like now, but maybe I have an idea of how I want it to look like. So that's how I help as well, how about building a new life and what you want in it and how to build it. And then the co-parenting plan is also discussed so that the people take the best decision for their child and themselves. So it's not a burden. It's not they don't give away too much and they don't take on too much. And they have quality time with their children. So also thinking about the grandparents, the family members, and also when often I have the case of the ex wanting to, the other spouse wanting to call, ex-spouse wanting to call the child while he's at the other parent. And it often annoys the parents, in charge at that time. So it's about understanding that maybe your child wants to speak to their dad or mom, and it doesn't mean they don't love you, or what feelings are arising in you. Why are you feeling so upset that your child wants to talk to your ex-spouse? What does it bring inside you? And so we're working on all of these feelings, and so that maybe the person realizes, okay, it's not so important, it's normal, that they miss their dad or mom and they just want to have a quick chat, and that's fine. Yeah, so we try to understand the emotion behind all of these acrimony, resentment, anger, so that they go away, yes, and they're replaced by positive emotions. Yes.
I think that what we have to, I mean, it's always on a case by case basis, either on the coach when you coach them or when I give them legal advice. But what is that comes back all the time is dealing with the emotions, communicating, and I would say letting go of some things, like you were saying. You have to accept the fact that you cannot control everything anymore. But I mean, if you think about it, even when you're happily married, you have co-parenting issues. You always have them. Um, I'm happily married. I have co-parenting issues every day, but it's all about um, being able to let go. We often have the example, don't we, about what the children eat, and mothers saying, "Oh, I make sure they eat healthily with me, and I'm the boring one who makes them eat vegetables. And when they go to their fathers, they have pizza every night or McDonald's." Well, you have to let go, because there's nothing you can do about it. And raising the issue with the other one, the other parent, will only cause more friction. Do not take your children as an hostage in your, feud with your ex. You really need to let go and remind yourself of what is important for your child and for you. And that, I think that's what's really important. And I feel that it's important for the way you deal with your divorce case on the legal side, is to be able to let go of some things that may seem really important to you, but at the end of the day, what's important is that your child feels that there is no tension due to him or her, and that if there is tension, it's just between the parent and it's due to their relationship and not the child.
Yes. Yes, I think it's important that they are able to share when they go to their dad or their mom, what happened, that they're happy. They can show that they're happy to go to the other parents, and not have to hide it, from, because the mom is angry or sad or upset, or the dad, or so that's really good to bear in mind, that the child needs to feel happy, and also not to criticize your ex-partner in front of your child. Something we see as well often. So if that happens, you can't, and you're the other person, you can't control what happens at your ex's place and what he says. But I think we had this conversation yesterday, actually, and it's about what can you control, what can you share, how can you show your child, what it is to be a good parent, what it is parenting, what it is to deal with stressful situation, or when situations don't go the way you want them to go. So how do you react to this, and what example you are showing as a mom or as a dad to your child. So that's what you can control. You can't control what your ex says, how they behave, or what they feed your child. You can only control what you do and how you show up as a parent. And I think that's really important. It would avoid so much torture and sleepless night, to think, oh, what's going on, and what has she done, what has he done, and you can't do anything about it. It's best to focus on what you can change, in your life around your child, and yes, so that's really important.
And something that you often mention, and I think is very important, is with regards to emotion. It's important not to put a front, but to explain, to show to your child that you may be sad, you may be angry, but just explain to him or her simply, not without going into any detail, and to make sure that there's no guilt on their part. You're not unhappy because of them. You're unhappy because of the situation, and they haven't, it's not their fault. And that's very important also. You often mention that in our discussions, and I feel that I think a child feels hostage in a situation when he feels that he's responsible for the situation. And I think one of the first thing when you talk about separation and divorce is, I know we often see that in films, we'll still love you, it's not your fault, but it's true, you really have to reassure your child that you are not divorcing or separating because of him or her.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. So the reassurance is important. That's for sure. Always communicate and show. You can show your emotions, because you don't want to teach you. As I said, you don't want to teach your child that it's not good to show your emotions when you feel sad, or you say, "Oh, look, mommy is feeling sad, but it's not because of you. I just had a sad thought, but." I'm just feeling sad for 5 minutes, and then we can do play together or cook dinner or whatever. So you can say to yourself also, I feel like what helps with that, because sometimes you will want to cry or you will want to be very angry, and your children are in the middle, or you at work, it could be that. Is to say to yourself, look, I'm able to cry tonight. I allow myself to cry when I come home in my bedroom. And for the moment, I'm going to focus on my children or on work. And I know I'm feeling sad, but I will allow myself to feel that sadness, because it's important to grieve as well and to feel those emotions, because these phases in shock of, the denial and through the acceptance. And so it's important to go through these stages to finally accept the new situation and your new life, especially if you're not, even if you are the decision maker, even if you decide, in both cases, it's important to go through all the emotions. And yes, so.
Okay, so I think we're going to wrap up. I don't know if you have any questions or if you want to share something with us. This webinar is really to show the importance of being able to have support in the process of divorcing with a divorce coach. I really feel as a lawyer that we need to work with somebody that can help you deal with the emotions and help you move forward, whatever you have difficulties with in dealing with in the process, whether it be the children or the spouse, something specific about the relationship. And what I'm going to finish, but I'm going to say to finish is that often clients come and see me and say, "I've got no problems with the children. We agree on everything. We know that the most important is our children." And then you realize that they keep saying that, but it's very far from the truth. So this is why working with a divorce coach is very important, in my opinion.
Thank you, Sarah Jane. No, but it's a support, and people maybe are not aware of it yet. It's fairly new in the UK, even in France, it's fairly new. But it's important to know that this support exists. It's different from counseling, and we also help you find solutions and options, when you feel stuck in this situation, like you don't know how to deal with it, the children, your ex, and how can I, you're going to explode sometime, or you feel totally stuck. And it's important that we can write together some options, not just one or two, but several options. So you feel you have the choice, and, you can choose your own path and your own way to move forward. With your children, for your own life, as a man or a woman, it's important to feel that you have different ways to move forward. And at the end of this tunnel, there's light, and that's where the coach step in to help you see that light and see all the positives in behind every situations. So.
Well, thank you very much. If there's no question, I've put our contact details in the chat box. Do not hesitate to send us an email if you have any questions on cross-border divorces or coaching associated with divorce. you can drop us a line. Do not hesitate. And we are doing webinars every month. So feel free to register again. Oh, is there a question? Okay, so we typically see women as those blindsided by their husbands. I have a number of male friends who are very scared about co-parenting arrangement because their wives will in fact hold their children hostage and a bias by the court against the father. What advice would you give to men who are petrified of this when they feel they simply cannot communicate with their wives and are afraid they will never see their children again? That's Penny, thank you for asking this question, because I have to deal it on a day-to-day basis with this issue of men, especially in Hong Kong, where it's still more traditional about the way we deal with family matters, where women are still, you know, although we're saying that we are evolving, it's what you're describing in your question is something real. Audrey, do you have anything to say about this situation?
Yes, I mean, for men, it is very hard there, isn't it? I am not so too familiar with the Hong Kong, but I feel like as a man, and as I mentioned before, is what you can do, to maybe communicate differently with your wife, ex-wife, if possible. Maybe change your way of communication, find what works. How can you make them see your point of view? So we can work on that. For example, if the results you wanted is not what you wanted, you still have, lots of conflict about the kids, the children. It's about how we can communicate in a different way to have a different result. So sometimes that really helps. I use these techniques a lot in coaching for people who are stuck in the same, vicious circle of communication, and they always end up with the same results, which is not what they want. So we could try to work on that. Me as a coach, that's what I would advise. Also control what you can control, as I said before. So what can you do on your side? So change your communication, maybe seek legal advice, with Sarah Jane, or anything you can do on your side to improve communication and to find other ways to deal with the emotions as well behind, because you must feel really angry as a dad, and I'm sure it's really hard and distressful. So I would say first is, yes, change your communication, have different thoughts, what other behavior you can implement with your ex-wife, because yes, it is very traditional there, isn't it? And
yeah, what I would add is that it is changing. So there, like everywhere, dads are more and more involved in their children's lives. So a divorce means, if it means not seeing their children as much as they used to, it's worth fighting. I would say on the legal side, do not hesitate to ask for custody, shared custody, if you think that you can really pull it through. If it's only as a means to remain in contact, I'm not sure that it's the right situation. But what I mean is that a father nowadays has the same rights as a mother. So they need to take all the legal advice necessary to make sure that their rights are respected, and their obligations, of course. If they feel that, there are cases where women may be under influence of, friends. So that's also important to make sure that with communication, as Audrey say, you limit the influence that those people can have. And so it's really all about making sure that you fight for what you want and for your children, and take advice, legal advice, but also help from a coach, a therapist, all the advice that you can have to make sure that you can still have the place you deserve to have in your children's life. So this is the advice you can give to your friends. I don't know if it helped, Vinny. So if there's no other question, I think we'll end here. Thank you again. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. we try, we improve every day. I feel like I'm learning every day, even from my clients. So it is very rewarding, and I'm hoping to help as much as I can. Everybody.
And what's important, you know, with the question that you've just raised, is to know that divorce coaching is for men also. You know, yeah. It is really for everybody. It's not something just for women. Men need it as much as women. So if there's a message that we want to convey, is yes. that men need it also.
Yes, they need the support, and they need to be able to, it's a safe space where they can share their feelings. And sometimes that's not what they want, you know, to do and show their feelings. So yes, I feel like it's very important that they know they can reach out. And I have many men emailing me, are you coaching men as well? And I'm like, yes, of course. It's important, yes, to know that. And yeah, so thank you for the question.
Well, thank you very much for attending the webinar, and we'll keep you posted on our next webinar, which will be in May already. Well, have a nice evening or day, wherever you are. And thank you again for attending. Bye, Audrey.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah Jane. Bye, everyone.